In this video, I'm going to talk about working in 3D with 3D assets. Obviously, you can see Snapchat or Lens Studio has this 3D interface, and we can rotate around in here and bring 3D assets in. I think once you understand the basics of this, it'll really open up some doors. Again, the examples that I show in this aren't going to be super complex, but are intended to give kind of an overview of how to work in this environment. So the first thing to just like get familiar with this environment here is looking at the ways to navigate the space. You can right click and move around, and then you can scroll in if you have a mouse, or kind of if you're on a trackpad, you can push with multiple fingers to kind of zoom in and zoom out. There's also these buttons up here which will allow us to pan side to side. This button will let us orbit something, so you can select these as well for zooming in and out. The other important buttons are moving, rotating, scaling 3D assets once you have them in here. The Unify button all the way on the right lets you access all these controls at once. I'm gonna just bring in something to start with. We can go into the scene panel here, and under 3D, there's a few different things you could do. You could bring in a box. And you see what that does. But just to show, and here it is in 3D space, or in the lens itself. But you can select this, right? If you go into the inspector, you can move things around this way by, let's say, changing the numbers. You can rotate things around as well. But these buttons up here, and it's nice to know the shortcuts to these. This is going to be W-E-R. W will let you kind of pull things and move them this way. I'm just clicking and dragging. E will let you rotate elements. And so what I'm doing is clicking on this, the lines, and just kind of moving them. And then R, it's a little bit counterintuitive from some other programs, will let us scale along these different axes. And if we want to scale everything at once, you can click and drag from the center box. So scaling along an axis, scaling everything at once. And that's just a really basic kind of way to get in here and understand how to work in 3D. So let's try to bring something in, a pre-existing asset. So you may or may not have experience in 3D modeling. So just one thing you can do is, if you don't have experience, is go into the asset library up here, and you can go into 3D, and you can just pull from one of these existing things. So if you wanted a hat, or some of these things are animated already, and some of these you can use just as kind of placeholders. I think a really simple one is just this birthday hat. So we'll bring that one in, and you can see what happened is, let's close this. It came into our file right here. It's not really connected to any face right now, right? So in order for this to track, we would want to bring in, head binding. So we have this camera and this effect, and then we want to bring this birthday hat underneath the head binding. And actually, it looks like it is a little bit off to the side. If you look at the dimensions here, it kind of by default got shifted, but if we move it over, we should be able to kind of find where it is. There is a face occluder here, which kind of help you locate this in space. Whoops. And each of these parts are individually editable. So I could click on those. If I want to move the whole thing, I want to select the whole birthday hat and move it as one. You can see the face is here and it's being occluded. So the back edge of this is being occluded by the face occluder. If we really want this to whoops, to look right, then we probably want to make these line up as best we can. Another way to navigate in here is to move around like this. You can actually hit different edges and look at things this way. So so far this I think looks okay. It's maybe not perfect, but just gives you an idea of how this might work. And you can see that change when we change the view. And so again, if you wanted to rotate things, you can hit E and you can rotate. Right now I'm rotating the whole thing, but you'll see I can move these around, play with them that way. Yeah, just a way to understand how to work in 3D. And if you want to start editing some of these items in here, what you can do with these assets is find the birthday hat in here. You find the birthday hat in here and you can open that up. Normally be kind of closed like this, and you can see the different pieces that you might want to select. But what we could do is go into the materials, and if we click on them, you can see that the color is coming up here, and so we can actually go and change the color. So if we wanted to make that red, this is a way to kind of edit some of these assets. This is the paper, so we can make that green. And so this is a way, again, for us to start, this is the palm, start to make these items, reuse some of these items and just make them more custom for our purposes. This one is already allowing us to edit it, but sometimes I've noticed you have to right click on this and it might give you an option to unpack this for editing, but it looks like it's already kind of unpacked here. So that's just a quick overview of using an existing 3D asset. Again, that's from the asset library. Under 3D, there's a few things in here. The next thing I'm going to do is just maybe go through different levels of making your own 3D assets and bringing them into your scene. 3D object is basically a mesh of polygons, typically triangles or some other shape. And inside of Lens Studio, you can see the mesh for the different parts of this party hat that we just worked on. And what we need to do is create our own mesh in a readable format so that we can import it into Lens Studio. I'm going to hop back into Adobe Illustrator, and in a previous video I had made this face and use this and attach it to the face and made some sort of face filter. So what I want to do is actually take this object, and you can see it's separate right now, but I'm going to group it up just to make sure everything is all one piece, and I'm going to make it 3D. I can use in Illustrator this 3D effect, and if you don't see it, you can go into 3D materials, and what we're going to do is go into here and hit object, and that should allow us to, right now what I want to do is an extrusion, which is to take this and kind of make it 3D. Now, the main thing I want to do is like figure out how deep, how much depth I want there to be, how much I want to extrude it. You can do weird things like twisting, which we're not really going to get into, and tapering. Another thing that you might want to get into is beveling this slightly. So if you can see now I've beveled this, that's a little bit too much, but you could either do a round bevel if you want something softer and then just kind of bring it down a little bit. Maybe something like that works for me. And so in order to access this all again, you want to select everything. And because it's a group, I want to make sure I select both things. And you can see that now it's in here. It doesn't really matter which way I rotate this because it's going to be a 3D object. So I can just kind of leave that how it is. You could go in here and change some of the materials, but I'm going to leave the materials as they are because I actually want the colors. But you can see that you could actually add some different other textures. And the lighting is also not really going to matter in this situation too. So what I want to do next is go down to Export 3D Object at the bottom of this. And we're going to use a format. Let's go into this. So this is the asset right here. Maybe we want to label this smiley face. There are a few sort of default options that might show up. Both of these are 3D file formats that are pretty universally recognized. I think probably the one that we're going to stick with is just GLTF. Yeah, so we're going to stick with this one. Now this one is we're going to be able to import this into Lens Studio. So I'm going to go, yeah, just click on this, and I just want GLTF. Let me export this out. I have some files in here. I'm just going to choose this. Okay, so that's been exported out. Let me go into my file now, and then I want to bring in that asset, that 3D asset I just made. I'm going to go up to Import Asset. I'm down the Asset panel here. I right-click and hit Import Asset. This is the folder where I stored it. Here's the smiley face version. We want the materials, like the color, to come in. You could turn that off and put your own materials, but we're going to keep the default settings as they are. And you can see we've got this new item here, smiley face. So what we want to do is attach this to the face over here. The way to do that, again, is to, go into Add and do head binding. And that's going to create this new camera object and then the head binding here. And then what we want to do is bring this in and make it a child, bring it in underneath the head binding here. And so you should see that has moved into place. Now, this is where it's good to know how to navigate this 3D viewer. We want to select that. Make sure we select the whole smiley face. We want to move everything together. We can hit W to move it forward, and we want this to kind of be in front so that we're not, chopping that face up. Yeah, and that looks to be okay. That's just bringing in a really simple 3D object. Again, you can create this in Illustrator pretty simply. So if you wanted to do a 3D logo or even 3D text, that could work. You can see these are the materials. So we have the black for the eyes and the mouth. Each of these, I guess, got their own material. You can see the yellow over there. And then, again, this is the 3D object, which is made of a mesh. So you can see the mesh for the eyes and then the face here. So that represents that. And this is I'm clicking and dragging. You can actually just kind of preview the mesh in here. So sometimes if it says mesh 4, it might not be clear, but you can see what the mesh looks like in here. One other thing that you might want to try is right now it's in as a smiley face as a package, but what we can do is right click on this if we want to edit it and go to unpack for editing. Once you do that, it's going to change the icon. And I really recommend putting your file, that package in here, because putting it in like this doesn't really work. You'd have to, I guess you could, this is the way you would do it if you happen to already change, unpack it for editing. But you want to make sure this icon goes in. You can't really bring in this folder icon. So that's something to keep in mind. But now that when we go to materials, we can actually edit this color now. So we could make it pink. And another good thing is, like, you can make it really metallic. You can turn metallic up. Let me just make this a little bit clearer, up to 1. And then if you bring the roughness down, you'll see that it gets really shiny. Adding the roughness in, it's metallic, but you don't get that super clear mirror-like reflection. And one thing you'll notice is, there is a reflection in here. Where is that coming from? In the default lighting here, you'll see that there's an environment map. Let me back out. There's an environment map that's represented by this icon up here. And then there is this light that's represented by that icon here. So this environment map is basically an HDRI image. If you go down into your elements here, you'll see this is an HDR image of Echo Park, it looks like, and it comes with these two passes, a diffuse pass and a specular pass, and these are being reflected into the 3D materials, or they're lighting, kind of lighting the scene with these. So you can, if you turn that off, you won't have any light really. Again, this is getting it's lit up and sort of its reflections from this environment map. So again, you'll lose that if you turn that light off. Okay, let's look at a different example, a different way to bring in a 3D object. Okay, so here I am in Blender, and you can download Blender for free online. And the first time you open up a file, you're going to get this cube in the center of your file. You can just select it and hit X to remove it. I'm going to create a smiley face out of 3D primitives or kind of basic shapes. I'm not going to get into modeling that much here. I just kind of want to show how to create something simply and then export it. So I'm going to add, I'll hit Shift A to add a mesh. Again, the mesh is what makes it 3D. And if we're doing a face, we could probably get there with the cylinder. You can see this cylinder is pretty big, and there's maybe some things I might want to change. For example, the first time you add something, you'll have this option to change some of these things. Maybe I'll want to change it, rotate this around 90 degrees. The depth is this right here. That to me is way too big, so I can pull that in. Maybe it's like 0.25, something like that. You can see the number of vertices, the edges. I can make this smoother if I go like that, or if I leave it at 32. One other thing is if I click on this and right click and go to shade smooth, it's going to even it out, or maybe shade auto smooth will make it look a little bit better. You're going to see some edges. Again, this is kind of a balancing act between quality and file size, but I'm going to just roll with this for right now. The next thing I'm going to do is put some eyes here. So I'm going to do Shift A again and add another cylinder. And let me also rotate this again. Maybe I need to move the position. Whoops. I just undid that by accident, but let me just go again and do that. I'm going to kind of move it out, but then I want to make this a lot smaller because it's just like an eye, and then I probably don't need this to be as big. Maybe something like that. So that's just the beginning of an eye. I can click on this and it's selected. Again, I'm in object mode here. A lot of beginners will kind of get stuck going between the modes if you hit tab, but make sure you're in object mode. We're going to hit G for the grab tool, and that's going to let us like reposition this. If we need to move it, again, you could look at things from different viewpoints. Like right now, if I get a side view, I'll see, oh, that eye is not really in the right place. And then I can rotate it around with the middle button. So I just want to put one eye in. I want to show a quick way to create another eye and make it symmetrical. Once I select this, I'm going to go into the modifiers. There's so many menus in Blender, so just try to follow which menu I'm at right now. There's a modifier menu with this wrench right here. I'm going to go to Add Modifier, and I'm going to search for something called Mirror. And so what that lets me do is mirror. You can see the modifier gets put underneath here, is mirror where that goes. You do want to put a mirror object in here. So the mirror object I'm using is actually going to be this cylinder up here, which I'll call like face. And so I want to drag that face there, and you can see that it's mirroring it on here, but it's using the x-axis where I really want to use the y-axis here. Okay, to mirror it. All right, so that's maybe the first part of my face. The next thing I'm going to do is maybe make that smiling face I had earlier. I'm actually going to add another cylinder. So let me label this and call it eyes. Shift A let's do another cylinder. Okay, so this is kind of a basic view of this. I can change that. I can also make this 90. What I want to do is take this and let's just bring it out. It's a little bit counterintuitive here, but in Blender, up and down is on the Z-axis, not the Y-axis. So I'm going to use this, and I want to take like half of the face and use that kind of for the mouth. And I'll do almost what I did in Illustrator for the other face, was to use like a Pathfinder tool or something to cut out that shape. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. Maybe I'll apologies for moving around so much. Maybe I'll just do this to kind of get, a similar depth. Okay, so what I want to do here is take this circle, but maybe cut off the top half of it so that it becomes like an open face smile. What I'll do is I need another shape to bisect that, and then I'll use that to cut it out. So I'm going to add in, like, I could do something simple like a cube, and I'm going to hit G to move it. If I hit G and Z, it's going to lock it to the Z axis. So I could do something like this. Again, if I want to see a certain view, maybe like this, I'll hit G and Z. Maybe I want it to like cut right there. It's kind of hard to see the whole thing, but the next thing I'll do, maybe I'll just turn this off to show you. Just remember where this is. I'm going to go into the cylinder I just created, which is the mouth. And then I'm going to go and add a modifier. Again, go down to the modifier wrench, add a modifier, and then we're going to search for something called Boolean. Boolean will let us take the different parts of this. So here's the object, or the object right now is, one of the objects is this cylinder. The other one we're going to use this cube for. So we'll put that cube there, and if you see what happened is, if I take this off, it just kind of cut that. It took the difference between these two pieces, the cylinder and the cube. So this is my smiley face. And just to kind of finish things up, we can add materials to this. So if you go down to the bottom right here, you'll see the material panel. You could also do this potentially in Lens Studio, but I like to do it here to kind of get a sense of what I'm making. Let's say we want to make a material. What you'll want to do is select the object you want to apply the material to, then go down to this button with looks kind of like a sphere, and we can go and add a new material this way, and we can find that. We can also put on the metallic and roughness, but we can edit this in Lens Studio. Now, if you're not seeing anything, it's probably because of the view mode here. So we'll want to go to viewport shading. If you're on this, you won't see it, and if you're on this, you won't see it. Now, see how much cleaner this geometry is than the one that came from Illustrator? That's an important thing to keep in mind. That's why it'd probably be better to do it in here, but it's a little bit more difficult. So just be aware of that. And then in the mouth, I'd accidentally started applying a material, but let me go in and I'll select the mouth, and maybe I'll just make it a black like this, and that's fine. Once you've created a material here, you can actually apply it to other things. So I can go onto the eyes, and instead of making a new material, I can hit this button and then find that material 3 that I had. Okay. Now, before we export this out, there's one last thing to do. And that is, we put these modifiers on here, but the geometry hasn't actually officially been created. We want to go into these modifiers and go into the modifier menu and make sure we hit apply here. That will officially kind of render render the other eye. If we don't do that and we export it, we're going to be missing an eye. And this modifier here, we also need to apply it. Otherwise, we're going to see this Boolean won't be officially applied. Again, this cube is still here, but you can view it. But because I applied that change, I don't need this anymore. So I can hit X and get rid of it. And now from here, I can export that that file for Lens Studio. Okay, so when I go to export this, it's a similar sort of thing where I need to export this as something that Lens Studio can read. And for AR, a really common format is GLTF or GLB. The difference, the GLB is like a little smaller. I think it's a binary file, but we can export this way. Both are actually going to be readable by Lens Studio, so you could go into here. Either format is going to work. So I just want to show you that. I will put in here Blender Smile and export that. Okay. Let's hop back into Lens Studio. We're going to right click, import asset. Blender Smile. We can keep all the settings the same. And you see it came in right here as Blender Smile. And what we can do is bring this into here. We'll go where that smiley face is. Let's just turn that old smiley face off. Okay, so here you're seeing, oh, this thing is really big and it's rotated in the wrong direction. So let's see if we can fix that. Whoops. Looks like we're going to need to go, whoops, rotate it. Oh, and you want to make sure that when you're doing these rotations, that you are doing them to the entire piece right here. We need to rotate it around the y-axis. There we go. And then we got to scale this down. We could change it here, or you can hit R. And again, if you hold, click and drag from the middle, we'll scale it down. If we right click, I hit W to access this and just move it back up. Okay, so that's that. Again, if you want to change some of the materials, you'll need to go in, and right now it's grayed out. Just right click this and go to Unpack for Editing. It's going to make this folder, and then from there you can go in and change the color if you wanted to. Here are the meshes that represent the different shapes. You can see these are the eyes. I'm just clicking and dragging to view them here. Okay, I'm going to delete this for now, and I want to do want to show one other thing from Blender that could be really important. Right now, these are just 3D assets. They're not animated, but we can actually animate these and then save these out and import the animations into Lens Studio. So what I'm going to do is a few things is just make this project length a little bit shorter. I only need probably 90 frames and you can see, you can either change the frames here in this corner or go up to this output properties and change your frames from 90. And if I want to see this, if I want to just zoom in on my project, you can see 90 goes up to here. Okay, to get this ready for animation, what I want to do is spin this whole head around, spin it, rotate this. Now, the problem is if I go to rotate one of them, I need to rotate the other one, and I want to do this all together, kind of make it easy. So one way for me to group this is to create an empty and then parent these items, put them underneath that empty that I create. It's like a null object if you're coming from another software. And then once I animate that null object or that empty, that's gonna, since they're attached, since they're all children of that empty, they're gonna follow around. It might be easier if I show you, so I'm just gonna go up to Shift A and add in an empty. I'll just do the plain axes. That created this empty right here. And what I'm gonna do is select all the things I want to go in here. So eyes, and I'm gonna hit Shift to get this, face and mouth. Actually, I don't need the light. So maybe I'll hold down Shift here and then I'll do Command click to skip this one. And then the last thing you wanna do is select the empty. And it's important you do it in this order. From here, you can right click or you go to Object, Command P, and you can see that the empty is the parent, and these are the children inside of it. And once I start rotating this, everything rotates together so that I'm not having to do each one separately. So what I'm going to do is just do a spinning head. Let's start from, let's see. Yeah, I wanted to use the x-axis. In Blender, you can set keyframes by just clicking here, and you see the icon change. And then we'll go to 90. That's the last frame. And then we'll say 360. And make sure you hit this button again to drop another keyframe, and you can see what this looks like. Now you can see it kind of speeds up and then slows down at the end. There's naturally some easing on this. So if we want this to kind of be spinning continuously, one thing we could do is edit that. If you go up into the animation panel up here, it'll bring up this different layout. I guess it's more of the animation layout. And then you can select these. These represent the keyframes. And if you right click on them, what you can do is go to interpolation mode. And instead of, it's probably on Bezier or something with easing on it, just turn it to linear. And then once you do that, it's going to be moving. Let me figure this out. Let me move around. There you go. You can see it's going to be moving at a more constant rate. This is just good so that we can loop it. And again, we set the range to 90 frames, so that's what's going to come out. And now we can export this and have the animation already embedded in it. It's a really simple example, but at least shows you the process. So we'll go back into Export, GLTF, and let's say Blender Smile. Let's call it Spin. .glb, that's fine. And animation is checked here so that we know that that animation is going to be embedded in it. Let's go back into Lens Studio now. We're going to go into here, right click, import the asset. And that last thing we did was Blender Smile Spin. You can change the sampling rate, but we worked at about 30 frames per second, so it should be fine. Blender Smile Spin, let's bring this in under head binding. Again, we have smiley face turned off. Maybe we just delete that to clean this up. And then it is spinning, but you can see that it's, again, way too big. So maybe we hit R to scale it down a lot. Whoops. And what happened is I only scaled the face here. So again, you want to scale the whole thing. And you can see it's facing in the wrong direction. I should be able to fix that. There we go. And then we just want to move this. Let's hit W to get the move handles. Yeah, so that's that. Again, if we wanted to change the color or some of the materials, we can go to Unpack for editing. And then we can go in and look at the materials. Whoops, that's the wrong folder. We can open up the folder and go to materials. Yeah, we can change this around. Let's make it more metallic. The last thing I wanted to show, and you can see here the reflection really well because we turned down the roughness, is let's say you wanted to bring in a different environment. You can download HDRIs or you can take them yourself, but I have one kind of already set up. Here's a folder of two of them. One is an empty warehouse and one is a studio settings. One thing to keep in mind is that there is a size restriction on these HDRIs, and generally 4K HDRIs won't be supported. So this one with the studio is not going to work, but I can use the other one because it's a smaller file size and it fits within the restrictions. This is a 2K HDRI, and we can bring this in, and you see that that came in as the empty warehouse, and it has these two separate maps here. What we can do then, instead of grabbing, go to the environment map lighting here, instead of grabbing from the diffuse Echo Park, let's go into the warehouse and grab the diffuse there, and then you'll really see the change once you go and grab that specular. And now you'll see that it really looks like that empty warehouse. So if you wanted a different type of lighting or a different reflection, this is the way to achieve that. And I'm just going to make this more metallic so you see some of that reflection in here. I guess it's so dark that it might be hard to see, but if we, there we go, we change the color a little bit, you can start to see that reflection. And so again, this is just an overview about how to bring in 3D assets in different ways, how to work with 3D objects inside of Lens Studio. If you're good with modeling, or if you have more experience with Blender, I'm sure you can build more complex things and you can animate things. One last example I'll bring in is from the asset library. This is another example of a 3D object that has animation. You could bring in something like this kitty, which, if you make a character, you can actually bring things in and rig them and animate them. So here's that right here. I'll grab this, look at that icon, and I could just put this here in the scene. Let's click on that. Whoops. Click on that. Let's start to move that. So you can see on this side in the preview, this is a dancing kitty. And we could move this in space. And if again, this is just another example of the kinds of things you can do in 3D in Lens Studio.